What does a Freemason, a remarried divorcee, and an Anglican bishop who celebrated Mass at the Pope's cathedral all have in common? Well, they're all the same person. Joining us, our Rome correspondent, Dr. Jules Gomes. Jules, an Anglican Masonic bishop celebrating Mass at the Mother Church of Catholicism? Really?
Brad, this is not just the Mother Church of Catholicism. It is the oldest basilica, at least in the Western Church, they say in the world. It is the Mother Church of Catholicism, and it is the official ecclesiastical seat of the pontiff, his cathedral. And if you look at the picture of Bishop Jonathan Baker celebrating Mass, he's standing and preaching just in front of Pope Francis's, or the papal cathedral in St. John Lateran in Rome. Now, this is hugely significant because not many people know that in terms of primacy and importance, St. John Lateran supersedes St. Peter's Basilica. St. John Lateran is the archbasilica. It supersedes all the four Roman basilicas. St. Peter's is merely a basilica.
Well, yeah, me, like many Catholics, thought, St. Peter's was the chair or the cathedral of the Pope, but it really is St. John Lateran's. Tell us more about the incident that happened yesterday.
Right. Bishop Jonathan Baker is Bishop of Fulham. This is a suffragan see of the Diocese of London, which, funnily enough, is headed by a woman bishop, a bishopess. And he brought around 30 or more of his clergy for a 3-day clergy conference in Rome. It takes place once every 3 years. They visited the English College in Rome, which is a training house for Catholic priests from England. They were Father Stephen Wang, a member of the English College, gave them a lecture. They then had dinner with Cardinal Gerhard Müller, the former prefect of the Congregation for the Dicastery of Faith, and Müller gave them a talk. But this morning, Bishop Baker presided at the concelebration of the Holy Eucharist at the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. Funnily enough, again, using the Roman rite of the Holy Mass with his 30 or so Anglican priests, all in vestments.
And he also Baker met with Pope Francis today.
Absolutely. Pope Francis met Bishop Baker and Bishop Glyn Webster, who was the former Bishop of Beverley in England. And they met after the Pope's Wednesday audience in St. Peter's Piazza.
Now, for Catholics out there, maybe they think this is a one-off thing. Somehow the Bishop Baker was given, or the Anglican bishop was given permission here by some. Did this permission come from Pope Francis himself, this prestigious permission to celebrate Mass, which many cardinals can't even get at St. John Lateran's? Did that have to come from Pope Francis himself?
Well, I would say yes, because of 2 reasons. First of all, this is the Pope's Basilica. He is the boss here. He's delegated responsibility to the administrator. He's a vicar for Rome, Cardinal Angelo Donatis. However, a couple of months ago, he snatched all those powers away. And in a decree that made him out to be a micromanager of the Diocese of Rome, he stripped Donatis of most of these powers. So, this would have been, nobody would dare to take such a significant decision without first consulting the Pope himself. And it is almost certain that Pope Francis was consulted, and Pope Francis, not surprisingly, said yes, because Pope Francis has been very favorable to Anglicans since his time as Archbishop of Buenos Aires.
Okay, well, how are faithful Catholics responding to this incident of Bishop Baker actually offering or attempting to offer Mass at the cathedral of the Pope himself?
Traditionalist Catholics are outraged. Interestingly, Anglican converts to Catholicism, who have now Anglican priest converts, some of them have been received into the ordinariate and reordained as Catholic priests. They attacked what was happening viciously on Twitter this morning. Father Ed Tomlinson, for example, was scathing in his attack. He said that these Anglican priests are dressing up and giggling like schoolgirls because they've had the privilege of celebrating Mass at the Pope's Cathedral. Calvin Robinson, an Anglican deacon who we interviewed a few weeks ago, he came in, chimed in, and he corrected Father Tomlinson and said, with all due respect, they were not giggling, and let's have a bit of charity. So on the one hand, you have traditionalist Catholic leaders like Peter Kwasniewski saying, you know, how can this be possible? But on the other hand, you also have more open-minded Catholics, shall we say, responding and saying, okay, let's have a bit of charity, because, you know, Anglicans lend their churches to Catholics quite often in England for Catholics to hold services in. And the dicastery for ecumenical relations for Christian unity basically gives, you know, the diocesan bishop the authority to let Anglicans and Christians of other denominations use the Catholic Church, and even use things like the vestments, the chalices, etc., if people of other denominations do not have them.
Okay, now this isn't the first time Anglican clergy were invited to Catholic churches in Rome itself?
This is the first time I think an Anglican bishop has actually celebrated in such a position of privilege and prestige. But as we reported, Brad, a few months ago in January, during the Week for Christian Unity, Angelo Donatis and the Diocese of Rome had Waldensian preachers in their pulpit, in Catholic pulpits, and these Waldensian leaders of the Waldensian, proto-Protestant Waldensian Church in Italy, not only pro-gay, some of them even pro-abortion, and sadly, many Catholics, or some Catholics in Italy who cannot get married to their same-sex partners in the Catholic Church, go to the Waldensian Church and have their weddings solemnized there by Waldensian ministers. And this scandalized Catholics a fair bit, because, you know, you're not just inviting people who once upon a time were declared heretics by the magisterium, but also who are not even following their own biblical principles on sexuality.
Well, yes, I mean, this bishop, his bishop is supposedly, his superior is supposedly a female bishop. Baker's female superior is a female bishop. He himself is a Freemason, and also he was not only divorced, but remarried, where 1 Timothy 3:2 says, you know, about a bishop, they only can be, have one wife, meaning they can never get married. Even in the Catholic Church, if you were going to be married, it had to be prior to ordination. If your wife dies or separated or whatever, you can never get remarried. So there's a whole lot messed up there. But let's get to the heart of this before we run out of time today. Jules, of course we would cheer true ecumenism. But a true unity in faith and practice between Anglicans and Rome, of course we would want that. But that's not what's really going on here, is it?
No, Brad, and you brought up, you know, some very important points. I mean, his free Masonic past, he's never repented on that. He was a Mason for 20 years, and he only said he's going to withdraw his membership of the Lodge because there was controversy about it when he was made Bishop of Ebbsfleet in 2011. We are also talking about his divorce and remarriage, something that scandalized a high-ranking priest within the Anglo-Catholic movement in England. But coming to your question about ecumenism, the way the Catholic Church Church has gone for the last 40 years is that ecumenism is seen as the kind of, we don't want institutional unity, is how the hierarchs of the church today will put it, because that could be seen as triumphalism. We don't mind a kind of loose fellowshipping where there is no, even if there is no agreement in doctrine. And sadly, that has been broadened now with Pope Francis signing the decree on Islam with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed Al-Tayeb.
Yeah, I mean, we've been taking the fences down on doctrine and practice for years, and hoping that sheep will wander somehow into the fold. Ecumenism is Ecumenism, and that's not the way it is. It's just the more and more sheep that were Catholic have wandered out from there because we don't really market the Catholic Church with the authenticity of its teaching, its practice, and Christ the King, prophet, and priest. So one in faith, one in grace, sacraments, and one in this the collective Christ the King headship, the vicar of Christ. So we're really missing out on these things. It's just more of the same murky waters that if you just kind of swim in them long enough, you think we're all together, but we really aren't all together, are we?
Pope Francis would consider what you just said to be offensive, because when a very high-ranking Anglican prelate converted recently, and we're talking about Dr. Michael Nazirali, who has worked on the Anglican Roman Catholic Dialogue Commission for over 15 years, Pope Francis personally told him that he did not need to convert to Catholicism. He could remain an Anglican. So you're right, Brad, and this is the direction in which the Catholic Church of today is going.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's creeping inside the fold too, with this synodal way that's going on. Anything goes but Catholic. Well, we urge our viewers and like-minded Anglicans to pray for true unity and for a Roman pontiff who will build an authentic bridge that spans from Rome all the way to Canterbury. Jules, thanks for your insights and reporting.
Thank you, Brad.